Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live match reaction show on Football Tour Podcast. My name is Ozzie, and I'm your host for this evening. Another disastrous performance from Liverpool as they suffered a 3-0 defeat by the hands of Crystal Palace. So, during the show, we'll speak about the game very briefly because it's not too much to talk about, if I'm being brutally honest. We'll talk about the problems in terms of what the club is going through right now. We'll do the player ratings. And if anyone wants to call in, I have pinned a link in the live chat. So feel free to hit that link and I'll try and get you on towards the latter stages of the show. So let's talk about the game. Before we even kicked the ball, I was quite surprised by the lineup. I did a match preview yesterday where I presented a team that was a mixture of youth, a mixture of experience. I still feel like I went a bit overboard with the amount of changes that I made in the team. But Arne took it one step further. And in terms of starting lineup, not too many dissimilar sort of changes or selections in terms of the players. But the bench was completely out of bounds in terms of having a bench with no experienced player available or selected, I should say, is unheard of. He's just done a press conference saying that he didn't have much of a choice. He's got a few injuries and all that sort of stuff. But you did have a choice. You could have fielded or you could have had a few experienced options. We never go into a Carabao Cup tie with just youth players on the bench. There's always a variation of experience or high quality in terms of, the caliber players that we have with your youth players. You never just let the youth players just, play a professional game because a lot of these players are kids. They haven't played at this level before. So I was quite astounded in terms of the bench selection there. But in terms of the game, even the formation was different to what we are accustomed to seeing. So I thought, all right, this is interesting. Let's see how that goes. Um, I wouldn't say we're playing a back three. I think we're playing a back five more than anything else. And when you play that kind of formation, you are inviting the opponent to attack you. And even though we didn't concede in the opening 10 minutes, which is a positive, out of a terrible situation right now. But unfortunately, the goal that we did concede was an individual error by Joe Gomez, who couldn't clear the ball out of the way, and it led to Ismail Assar, who I've said this so many times. We've faced Crystal Palace quite a few times this year. Um, he's got an issue with Liverpool because he always turns into prime Arne whenever we play against him. Now, I know in terms of years and years ago, we were actually very close to signing Ismail Assar. We were linked with him when he was playing for Rons in France. So maybe because that move never materialized, he's got a bit of a vendetta against us. I'm not quite so sure, but he always turns up against us. And today, he certainly did score in the brace. The second goal was just great 1-2 play between the Palace players. And the second half, Palace really took the mick and just brought on Mateta like it's nothing. And yeah, we couldn't do that. We didn't have any experience off our bench. We had youngsters who have been untested at this level. We did bring on the likes of um, Kay Gordon, Lucky, Nalo, and Connor Doherty. But these are players that haven't played at this level, so it was always a big ask, regardless of what the scoreline was. You're not expecting too much from these young players. This is an occasion which should be special for them because they have made it to the first team, and I feel like with Slot not really bringing in any experience to the squad today, he's let them down to an extent. You don't just throw in your young players and let them sink in the deep end. That's what it felt like in terms of what was presented today. So that was definitely something that I noticed and something that I don't appreciate from the coach because I don't feel like he looked out for the young players there. And of course, in terms of second half, it was a bit of a ball fest from a Liverpool point of view. Not much happening. You had the likes of Chiesa and Rio working hard, trying to make things happen. but in the end, not they didn't really have much to work with, if that makes sense. And then we suffered a red card for Nalo, and unfortunately for him, that's two on the bounce. So of course he's probably distraught after this fixture today. And then Pino wrapped up the game with a neat finish at the end as well. So overall, yeah, not a great day in the office, and it hasn't been for a number of games, to be honest with you. That's 6 defeats in 7 games. Yeah, which is unheard of. I'm actually a bit gobsmacked in terms of how to explain that, because it's not something we have ever encountered. I don't think so, unless someone could tell me in the chat. Even when we were going through bad times over the years, to lose consecutive like this and not see any improvement as well is a concern going forward. But like I mentioned at the top of the show, I was very surprised by the team selection. I thought it would have been a mix of youth and experience, like we normally do, despite what Arne said in the press conference today, or should I say post-match conference, suggesting that this was the same kind of lineup that we had last year. No, it wasn't. We didn't have a bench full of young kids. We still had experienced players in the full squad. So of course he's talking nonsense there. Um, and look, I'll be brutally honest. If you watched my match preview yesterday, you would know I didn't expect us to win. I thought we were going to lose 1-0 because of the way we performed in recent weeks. But the way he set the team up today, he didn't really give us a chance. To have a bench full of youth players is literally like waving the white flag. Like, we don't really care. We're here to surrender. How can you not put a single experienced player on the bench? For me, that's just outrageous from the coach. And look, I feel for the fans that travelled or that attended the match. Shout out to Jamie Phillips, who I'm sure everyone will know is a great content creator. He travelled to the game today, and what a terrible game to spectate. Fans were walking out of the stadium probably before the 80th minute, but that's when I really noticed it. And Slot looked disgusted because he was thinking, the match hasn't finished. Why are people walking out? And when the game ended, more than two-thirds of the stadium was empty. Can you blame the fans? I don't. Absolutely not. They spent their hard-earned money to watch a quality game of football. Instead, Arne Slot fielded youngsters like it was a reserve game. And look, you're probably used to seeing content creators, crash out and saying all sorts. I feel a bit numb to this now because the defeat doesn't come as a shock. So I'm not over aggressive or, over talkative right now, even though I am rambling on a little bit here. But for me, this is just not acceptable. Um, I was expecting us to lose today, but that's just based on, the squad being in such low confidence and a mixture of youth and experienced players that haven't really played enough minutes to have good rhythm in the team. I didn't really have high hopes, but I expected better. I expected us to at least challenge. I expected us to have viable options off the bench to come onto the pitch and try and make a game out of it. That's something we could have at least done for the fans that attended Anfield today. I was surprised by the formation and slightly, I'd say pleasantly surprised at the start. But as the game went on, I didn't like the way the team was set up. Um, it was a very ultra defensive formation, a 5-2-3. I don't think I've ever seen us play a 5-2-3. And if we have it in transitions or if we're trying to hold off strong opponent, and that's not me being disrespectful to Crystal Palace there. If we're playing against, like a Real Madrid, or, then you've got to do what you can to try and hold on to a point or whatever the scenario is in the match. But I was surprised by the formation switch because we didn't have any experience. But of course, we had a few in our lineup, but this was not the time to test out a new formation when you've got pretty much youth players from the academy and reserve players who are untested at this level. Because I know for a fact They don't play this formation at the youth or reserve level. So why do we test it out today? And look, not to sound dramatic, but this performance that involved these young players could hurt their confidence for the near future. And that's the coach's job to look after these young players in this situation. We're going through a bit of a crisis right now. I don't feel like he should have threw all of the young players under the bus because that's what it feels like to me. So I'm really shocked that we didn't field experienced players in that lineup as well as the bench. Now, the big question is, am I slot out? I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt because of us winning the league last year. That I'm not quite there. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm not far off. If I'm being brutally honest, and you can probably tell by my tone of voice. And I said this in the Brentford match reaction show. I think he's lost the changing room, and if he hasn't done that, he has now. And I also think he's lost a lot of the fan base as well. And look, this is dark times. What we're going through right now. Don't wanna sound over the top, but it is giving me Roy Hodgson vibes. That era that we went through all those years ago. Like you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's so bad right now. I just watched the post-match conference, and he was coming out with all sorts of excuses, saying, "Oh, the team has struggled to play 3 games in 7 matches, sorry, in 7 days, and he only had 15, 16 senior players available to choose from. So why weren't they in the squad today?" And he's also saying that, oh, new players are finding it difficult to play so many games at Premier League and Champions League level. And a few days ago, he also said that, everyone's got a way of playing against us, low blocks and long balls, and we just don't have the answer for it. I'm sorry. If you don't have the answer for it, you're not actually adequate enough to be Liverpool coach. It's as simple as that. If you're a Liverpool manager or Liverpool coach, whatever your job title is, how can you not defend the block? We are Liverpool Football Club. We are regarded as one of the best teams in world football. You think teams aren't going to play low block against us? That's an outrageous thing to say out loud. It really is. So I'm surprised by the comments he's come out with in recent weeks. And if I'm being brutally honest, I'm very concerned about our run of fixtures. We're playing Villa this Saturday. They might not be in the best of forms, but they can literally turn up and get a point or even beat us in any given day. Then next week we've got Real Madrid. When that draw happened in Champions League, I was upbeat about it because obviously you've got the return of Trent Alexander-Arnold coming back to Liverpool. Now I'm dreading it. I'm not even looking forward to that fixture. And then the following fixture after that is Man City, who have been in good form in recent weeks. So what are we going to do now? It's dire times right now, and Armstrong needs to find a solution. Whether it's a tactical change or formation reshuffle, something needs to be done. Because right now, I think time is running out for Arne Slot. I don't think he has a lot of time that he would probably think he does. There were talks of him having a new contract. Apparently, that's been put on hold, and rightly so, because you can't give or reward someone with a contract when he's performed at this level. You know, the players don't look like they're playing for him. They look lost. They look a bit bewildered. They don't even know what they're doing on the pitch. And these players were champions not so long ago. It's only like 6 months ago we became champions. So it's a very, very big concern going forward. But we'll speak about the upcoming fixtures in due course. Let me just go through some of the comments in the chat. Um, Delulu Steve, big up Delulu Steve. He says, "I've had enough. Slot out. Give me Zinedine Zidane." Zinedine Zidane wouldn't be a bad shot if I'm being honest with you. I just don't know if he would be attracted to moving to England. I think, of course, Liverpool as a club would be an attractive proposition for any manager, but I don't know if he'd want to come to England. I don't know if I get that vibe from him. Um, and then you've gone on to say Stott was given a Ferrari in pre-season, as if he doesn't know how to drive properly. Yeah, not everyone can drive supercars, so it's not a it's not a simple thing to do. So that's what it feels like. Maybe there's too much responsibility or too much pressure and expectations now because of the expenditure of the transfer window in terms of spending 450 million pounds, which is unheard of from a Liverpool standpoint. So maybe he's not able to adapt to that sort of pressure, and maybe the job is too big for his boots right now. Because when he came last season, there was no pressure. Of course, he was replacing an icon in Jurgen Klopp, but there was no pressure for him to deliver anything. The fans, even honestly, even if we didn't qualify for top four, I'm not saying the fans will be happy or you know pleased about that, but it would have been understood based on the circumstance that he had to replace Jurgen Klopp. So last season was a free hit in my eyes, and maybe some will say we overachieved by winning the league, and some teams, weren't performing. That's not my problem. We had to do what was our job, and that was to try and compete, and we end up winning the league. So that's why I've still got a bit of hope for Arne Slot to switch this around, but the hope is not very high, if I'm being honest with you. And he needs to get results in the next few weeks. Otherwise, I can see the club getting ready to make changes in December because of the window coming up in January. So that would be ideally the perfect time to bring someone in, find out what needs to be done to improve the squad, and then take it from there. So yeah, it's make or break for Armstrong in the next few weeks, and let's see, if he's able to swim or is he end up going, or is he going to end up sinking? Because right now, even just by his body language, the way he's talking press conferences, I'm not impressed. To say things publicly, oh, I don't know how to deal with a low block team. Come on now. That's absolutely wild to say that out loud. Like you've just pretty much hindered your credibility as a coach by saying that out loud. That's how silly it was. So let's see. Let's see what happens. But the hopes are very, very low right now. LFC 20, big up yourself, LFC 20. He says in his interviews after game, he looks like a rabbit in the headlights. Yeah, he's talking a lot of rubbish as well. So yeah, he's coming up with a lot of waffle. Um, and look, there's times where rival fans will be like, oh, they'll make comments about your manager's press conferences. I can't really defend what he's saying. To say he can't defend a low block team, I can't defend that. That's just stupid. That's something I can't really say, oh no, he's right. Teams are playing the low block. Listen, teams have always played the low block against it, especially since the Jurgen Klopp era. It's normal for us to deal with teams like that. That's why you signed the likes of Florian Wirtz, those kind of players to unlock those stubborn defenses. This is why you spend all those big bucks for that type of quality. So you can't use that as an excuse. So for me, absolutely outrageous. Stewart's, we got Stewart's. He says, I said it that we downgraded after the transfer and that slot road flop cocktails last season. And I have proven right. Um, fair enough. I don't remember you saying that, but if that is your opinion, fair enough. It's a please sack slot now before we start battling relegation. Sack slot now. I think that's a bit far fetched to suggest that we'll be fighting relegation because we're not that bad. I know obviously 6 out of 7 is not ideal, but I don't think we're that bad where we're going to be fighting for relegation. But if you are slot out, who would you regard as a replacement? Let me know in the chat. Not just Stewards, everyone else. Who would you be inclined to appoint as the next Liverpool manager? Big up R says thoughts on the whole. They dropped Sesko meltdown. I haven't seen that, so feel free to elaborate. If you've got any quotes, feel free to drop it in the chat, and I'll try and read it out. But I haven't seen that they dropped Sesko comment there. If that is in regards to Onslaught. Okay, so what we'll do now, we will move on and do the formality of the show, and that is, doing the player ratings, which, yeah, it seems like a bit of a silly thing to do, but, we've got to stick to the script. So here we go. So let's do the player ratings, and let's start with the goalkeeper, Woodman. I thought Woodman, considering what happened today, actually had a decent game. In terms of the goals that were conceded, I don't think he was at fault for any of them. Um, the Pino one was, well hit at close range. Sar's finish, when he's in that position or when any attacker's in that position, you give them the benefit of the doubt that they will score. So I don't think he could have done anything else in those situations. What impressed me about his game today was his distribution. Really, really quick on the mark. There was a couple of times where he gave it to Rio and Fede, Chiesa, of course, to create a counter attack. So he was very sharp in that regard. Kicking in terms of distribution was good as well. So solid performance, nothing ecstatic to say about him. But no, he did really well considering his third choice. I feel like he looked really comfortable um, in between the sticks. So in terms of his rating, I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. I think it was a solid performance from the goalkeeper. Excuse me. Um, Now Ramsey, considering he hasn't played for Liverpool in excuse me, in about 3 years. I know he's made he's made 30 performances, but of course not to the high volume. Um, and considering he's just played reserve football in recent weeks, I actually thought he was really decent today. Especially in the first half, showed some really good touches. Looked very calm and composed on the ball. Couple of erratic moments in terms of dishing out fouls and misplacing passes. But I feel like out of all the players that came in that were regarded as young players, he looked the most assured. I didn't really look out of place playing in that right back role for me or right wing back role today. So I thought he had a decent performance. Someone that's been put out cold for quite some time. So in terms of his rating, I will give Calvin Ramsey a 7 out of 10. Uh, Endo playing as a right-sided centre back today actually looked all right. In the back three, I feel like it suits him a bit more because he's not dependent on his height and to be an able presence. He's more of a defensive-minded player, and he's just occupying one side of the pitch. So I feel like in the back three, playing on either side suits his skill set, and I thought he did really well. Um, no huge errors from his part in the second half. Moved into the midfield. Distribution was good. Gave away the ball a couple of times, but I thought he was a prominent figure today. So for Endo, I will give him a 6 out of 10. Joe Gomez started the game really well. The opening 40 minutes, I thought he was all right. Looked assured, made lots of blocks and lots of interceptions. But unfortunately, the error he made for the first goal knocked his confidence down a little bit because after that he made a lot of errors. Then literally after the first goal, shortly after, it could have been 2-0 down in a matter of like seconds because he gave the ball away again. So I feel like in those moments, like he's experienced enough to know if you've made a mistake and you've conceded a goal, you kind of have to let it slide. Forget about it, treat it like it's 0-0 and think with a clear mind. But that was still playing in his mind. Unfortunately, it affected his overall performance throughout the game and looked less assured. Which is a shame because he looked like an experienced player in that backline. But after that mistake, he just looked like a shadow himself, unfortunately. So for his performance today, I'll give him a 5. Feels like it's a bit high. I'm gonna give him 4 out of 10. Um, Robbo, Robbo actually looked decent today in that role. Second half, he did give the ball away quite a bit. I remember there's one moment where he was like chasing 2, 3 players and clamped one person down as well. Uh, but in a back three or back five, I'm gonna say because I don't think it was a back three. Uh, it's a role that could suit him in the long term if this is the kind of setup that Armstrong wants to go with, because he adds balance to that back line. So I thought he did it. He had a decent performance. It wasn't anything too bad in my opinion. So for Robertson, I'll give him a 5 out of 10. Turkey was better today. Not hugely, if I'm being honest with you. Showed more energy in his game. Was attacking that left hand side a lot more. but not just doing that in terms of, in a headless way. He was, playing good balls with Chiesa and Rio on that side of the pitch, inverted a few times, which was a tactical approach I would assume from Slot. So had a decent performance, but he still has a lot of work to do to be, the player that we envision him to be, which, the Bournemouth characters, he's not quite there yet, in my opinion. But today, still decent for me. So I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. Um, McAllister, McAllister. He was quite poor today. Um, I thought this would have been the game, especially when I saw the lineup where he stands up tall and showcases his leadership and experience by setting an example to the rest of the young players around him. So dictating play, setting the tempo, and playing with authority. He did neither of those things today. In fact, he was one of the players that lost possession numerous times. Um, People were getting past him like they normally do this season, unfortunately, like he is not there, like he doesn't exist. And it's a concern for me. I don't know what's happened with McAllister and this notion that, oh, he's injured, he's not fully fit, then he shouldn't be in action. Simple as that. I don't want a passenger in my midfield anymore because people are passive. They are literally getting through us like he's not there. So for me, that's a big, big concern. And if he's not fully fit, shouldn't be in the squad. Simple as that. I only care about the options that we have in terms of limitations. I'd rather he not be there because he's impacting or affecting the way we're playing right now. So for me, another poor performance from McAllister. Um, I feel like I'm being nice here. I'm going to give him a 3 out of 10. Which some might even not even do that, but I'll give him a 3 out of 10. Trenioni, decent performance, not as great as his previous performances that I've seen him in a local shirt, but nonetheless, worked hard, worked really hard, tirelessly for the team. Passing range could have been a bit better, but overall, you saw the effort in a young kid, and that's what you want from a young player. When they're on the pitch, they give it their all, and that's what you want to see. So for me, he showed a good account of himself and, tried his best, which is, what you expect from a player of his age. So in terms of his rating, I'll give him a 5 out of 10. Morrison, young player, came on today. Had a few decent touches in the first half, but fizzled out a little bit. Wasn't as involved, so his impact lessened as the game went on. So yeah, I feel like this was a step too far for him to play at this level because I don't feel like he was quite ready for this stage at the moment. But none of this, he tried his best. So I think in terms of his rating, I'll give him a 4 out of 10. Rio on the other side did really well. Um, Showed his attacking credentials by being a constant menace. Munoz struggled against him on numerous occasions, especially in one-on-one duels. So it was definitely a game where he showcased his talent in one-on-one situations. Um, Had a shot where he just missed the post. Um, End product, he is something he still needs to work on. I don't want to sound harsh, but I'm assessing the player right now. He's only 17, so there's only so much I can say. But there were times where the final pass had too much pace or wasn't presenting the right direction. So there's of course a lot of areas of his game that needs to be worked on, and this is why I've said it for months now. I don't think he's quite ready to be in the first team mix. Like I think he's good enough to be around the first team. I feel like this season the focus should be where he tries to learn and develop and establish himself in the under 23s, and then we can utilize him for the cup games this season. That should have been his pathway into the first team rather than on paper being a backup for Gakpo. I think that's too much of a step. That's not, you know, in line with his development, in my opinion. I feel like he should be playing at just a level below and learning his the trick of the trade in terms of improving his end product because that's what something that lacks in terms of skill and pace. He's got it, but I feel like he needs to you know play at a certain level because even playing at the under 23s, it's a high level for for a 17-year-old. So if he's able to muster that a bit more by playing numerous games, then we can assess him in that second half of the season and then bring him into the squad. So that would have been my pathway for him. So, but nonetheless, of course, that's not his decision to make. That's for the coach and that's for the management team at Liverpool. But in terms of his performance today, he worked really hard. You can't question his effort and his desire today. At every given opportunity, he tried his best. He tried to take on the players. He tried to create from the wide areas. So you can't knock down his effort at all today. So for me, I'll give Rio and Gamoa a 7 out of 10. Chiesa, for Chiesa was good today. You could tell he was head and shoulders above everyone, not just in Liverpool team, but even the Palace team. Like the quality that he showed today, it shone through, in my opinion. And I was doing the watching and I was applauding for simple things. So when I said it out loud, I'm thinking, why am I applauding that? I.e., him being relentless in his pressing throughout the whole 90 minutes. There wasn't a moment where he didn't press, whether it was the centre back or the full back. He did everything. And the reason I was applauding that is because none of our attackers have been doing that. Gakpo, Salah, Ekitike, Isak, they've not been doing it to that level. So he showed a part of his game that people should take notes and need to apply it to their own game because they haven't done that this season. You know the saying, the best way of attack or defending is coming from the attack. We're not doing that. We're not pressing. We've been known for being a very aggressive team when it comes to pressing from the front. If you're not doing that, you're basically allowing the team to, as in the opponent, have more possession of the ball. They can dictate the play from their defense. If you've got a front foot player pressing from the front, it sets the tone for the rest of the team. And then that's how you play as a collective. Right now, we're disjointed in every department. And that's why we're not progressing as a team. So that is my concern going forward. And Chiesa, playing the full 90-minute, which is surprising because apparently he's not fully fit to play 90 minutes. Under Arne Slot, he hasn't played full 90 minutes in the Premier League. So why is it all of a sudden he's fully fit to play against a Premier League team in Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup? What's the difference there? Of course, the obvious is that there's a problem between the coach and the player, but the coach needs to trust him because he's a player that will work for the team. He may not work for you, but he's going to work for the team. He's going to work for the badge. So you have to play him for the upcoming games. But of course, because he played 90 minutes, he might not play him at all. He might be an impact sub more than anything else. So frustrating for Chiesa because I feel like, this season he's really, really tried. He's really tried to, stamp his imprint on the team. Whenever called upon, he's always delivered, whether it's impact off the bench or starting in games like the Southampton game. He did really well in that one as well. He's been a very prominent figure in this squad for me, Slot needs to swallow his pride a little bit and play Chiesa because I don't know what the issue is because technically he's a fantastic player. Personally, I will start Chiesa over Gakpo when everyone's fully fit. That's the kind of appreciation I have for Chiesa because I know what he's capable of doing. He might not be as dynamic as he used to be in his Juventus days or even his, days for the Italian national team and Fiorentina, but he can still deliver. So, that's something Slot needs to really look into because you've got a player that will work hard for the team, work tirelessly for the badge as well. So in terms of his rating, I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. So drop a comment and let me know what you guys think of the ratings. I'm not going to dispute if someone disagrees with my rating. It's a very hard game to try and focus and be impressed by because it was far from it at all. In terms of the subs, I'm not going to add them on because none of them are there. They're all youth players. So this website I use does not have them listed. But I can, say it out loud. So Key Gordon came on and to replace Morrison. Key Gordon did decent, kept everything neat and tidy, kept it simple. Even he seemed a bit frustrated because he came a lot more infield, whereas he's been known to be a out and out winger. So for in terms of his rating, I'll give him a 5. Um, Lucky, the centre back, he came on to replace Robertson. Did all right, not the best. Didn't show any composure in his play. Um, they went past him quite a few times as well. So not a player that gave me huge confidence. So I'll give him a 4. Nala, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to give you a 0. to get a back-to-back red card. Of course, I understand. He's probably feeling distraught, but you know, it's not something you could do. It's something you got to work on. So, gotta give you a zero. And Conor Doherty came on very late. Probably should have been brought on a bit earlier. To be fair, had one moment on the left wing where he went past the player, but when I can't really recall too much involvement from the Irish attacker. So I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. So that is my player ratings. I'm just going to go through some of the comments. Bear with me, I see there's quite a few there. R says after United match, Slot was complaining about Rubens dropping Sesko as if managers aren't paid minutes accordingly. Look, since there's one of defeats, Slot's been saying a lot of rubbish, so don't take it as gospel because yeah, he's been annoying me in terms of what sort of things he's been saying recently. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. To be fair. Just says, how are we not that bad? Is losing 6 out of 10 a standard for a club this big? In it over 100 years before we lost this much matches in short order. Anybody can come in and do a better job than Slot on a short run. Um, I didn't say it was bad. I said we're not as bad as United. I don't see us, being around 17th of the Premier League like it was last season. That was my comparison. But of course, things are bad. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in this kind of sort of tantrum in terms of what I've been saying all show because I'm very annoyed and disappointed in how the team is performing right now. And Slot's days are numbered. I've said it so many times. They are numbered now. So that's something that needs to be um rectified very soon. Bo, big up Bo. He says, "Are you in or out, my man?" I'm touching the door right now. I'm on the verge of being out, but I'm letting him have one more say. That's. I know that sounds a bit like I'm on the fence, but I'm only giving him that kind of credit because of what he did for us last season. But I'm pretty much on the way to the exit door, so I'm almost slot out if I'm being brutally honest because I'm seeing no improvement. That's my concern. Oh, of course, teams lose. It's part and parcel. You win and you lose some days, but it's the level performances that we're producing, and it's the way the team is set up, and it's a mess all the way around from formations, from tactical approach. Everything about us right now is a mess. And everyone will blame the players, of course, because they're the ones that are producing these performances on the pitch. But at the same time, you have to look at the coach. You have to look at what's happening in training with these coaches. Like, why are things, digressing as the weeks go on? That's my concern. So I'm pretty much close to being slot out, if I'm being honest with you. The reason I'm not saying it with too much chest is because I don't know who would come in as a replacement. So I'm trying to give him that benefit of the doubt that maybe he could turn around. But then I'm also seeing a lot of stubbornness in his demeanor, especially when you go into these press conferences. You know, there's a touch of arrogance. I don't know quite what the word is, but I don't know. He's not. And this is the thing in modern day, modern day coaches, they're very stubborn in terms of their philosophies and how they want the game to be played. Because if he changes the formation completely now, from the outside, it's thinking, oh, you're a tactician. You switched it up. You came up with a formula that's going to work. But for him, his pride is probably hurt. Thinking, oh, my setup is 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. I had to revert to a 5-3-2 or 5-2-3, however you want to call it. Like, I think that will hurt his pride if that makes sense. So I don't know. I'm giving him by the end of the week. I'll probably say slot out if we don't get a victory against Villa. But I'm probably few in terms of the fan base because I know a lot of people are completely out. But yeah, I'll give him the tiny bit benefit of the doubt. Arsenal says we have to be realistic here. Things could have been much worse. United should have beat us 4-0. At least we scraped the win versus Frankfurt, and Wirtz has been carrying us throughout the 7 games. The United game, 100%. Even the Palace game that we played, they could have been 5-0 up. at half time. Honestly, they demolished us. If they had their shoe boots on, especially Mateta, they could have destroyed us by half time. So even the Brentford defeat that we had over the weekend, the result was 3-2. But let's not kill ourselves. We weren't close to getting anything from that game. That scoreline doesn't do justice in terms of how the game was played. Brentford should have scored a lot more as well. So this is my concern. It's not just us playing poorly. Teams are walking past us like it's a, you know, like someone's going out for a picnic. Like it's a pleasant day for them. It's not hard work for them at all. It's a walk in the park, literally. So that's my concern. Where we're not even showing any fight, we're not showing any desire, any determination in terms of how we play. And that's what I've said. I think he has lost the dressing room. You know, if things aren't working, you're seeing a bit more fight. You're seeing players. There's times in certain clubs where players have got a red card because they're angry in terms of not getting the win and stuff. But I'm not seeing any energy from our players. Even Van Dijk had the interview on the weekend after the Brentford game. He looked so dejected. Like I've never seen Van Dijk like that. So it's a concern. It really is. And look, the defeats that we've suffered, the scorelines don't do justice. It could have been a lot worse. But then someone will be and say, "Well, maybe we could have scored." Maybe. But we are giving these teams the upper hand. We're conceding goals very early on in the game. So we're already giving ourselves a mountain to climb. And because of that, we're making it hard work for us. Like, why is it every game we switch to a 4-2-4 in the second half? Every game. You do that formation when you're on a 1-1 and there's like 5, 10 minutes left, and you're just throwing in that kitchen sink like Klopp used to do to get that winner. We're doing it literally at the start of second half, 4-2-4. It's crazy. It really is. Well, so scrapped a 5-1 win. Yeah, I wouldn't say we scrapped it. I think that was the only game where we played to a decent level. And that's why I was very surprised that Slot didn't stick with that same shape against Brentford. I say I was, to be fair, I had a feeling he was going to revert back to his normal 4-2-3-1 formation just because of his demeanor in terms of, his arrogance as a coach. I'm not just saying that because we're losing right now, but he does have that. And then he also has an element of transparency that I don't like, where he just tells the media all our secrets or inside information like, oh, we can't beat this team, but to beat Liverpool, you got to play the long block, you got to do the low block. Like you're talking too much now. So he needs to get it together because he'll be out of a job soon. That's literally how I'm seeing it right now. And yes, I wouldn't say we scraped that 5-1 win, but it was such a I was saying it was such a great improvement. But let's be honest, the benchmark was very low. Anything tiny bit better would looked amazing, right? So we got to do better. Um, but that result doesn't seem like it's got any worth now because he's reverted back to his old ways and we lost again. So he hasn't learned from that match where, oh, do you know what? Vert's playing on that right hand side. It really improved the fluidity of how we played. Oh, Jones and Szoboszlai, on paper, you're thinking it's not going to work as a duo, but they did really well. Like he didn't use the same formation, he didn't use the same formula onto the Brentford game. Now, if he did and we lost to Brentford, then maybe he has the right to switch it up, but he didn't. So yeah, he's got a lot of digging to do. He's got to find the solutions. He's got to try and get people back on his side because I don't feel like the players are playing for him. I might be looking into this a bit too deep, but I really don't. Um, LSC20 says Ramsey should play at the weekend, going on his performance today. That way, we won't have to put Szoboszlai right back. Do you know what? If that's what it means, where Szoboszlai doesn't play right back and we play Ramsey instead, I'm all for it. I'm not. I'm not even kidding myself because I'm not saying he was amazing to him, but he showed good composure on the ball. Tactically, he was good. Like even there was one moment where I think Robertson was out of position and then he ran through the other side and made a block on that left hand side. So he covered for his teammate in that moment. So he has a good understanding of the game. I'm not saying he's the answer. I'm not saying he's the solution, but right now we need every little help we can to try and get a W on our belt right now because right now we're not doing anything. So yeah, if that's the case, why not? Because Frimpong's not available. I'm not sure in terms of the extent of his hamstring injury, in terms of how long he'll be out for, but we need every player available right now. So for me, if you know Brandy's not eh, fit enough to play or whatnot, Ramsey has to be regarded as an option for right back. It is what it is. It might not be a popular opinion, but fortunately it is. Um, Miles says, I wouldn't say that, but still, I don't take much from that game. I think that's in reference to Arde in terms of the 5-1. Also, I miss Glenn Johnson, man. Glenn Johnson was a baller. A lot of people didn't like Glenn Johnson's time at Liverpool. I thought he was really good. He was so good on the ball. Great crossing. He had a shot on him as well. But yeah, he was a decent player. Say, come on. Phil said, I saw Squirrel eating a banana on my way home from work tonight. Everyone's missing Glenn Johnson, Glenson, if you want to call him that. I miss Johnny Cleverson, bloody yeah. Everyone's missing everyone today, aren't we? Bo says the reason Kirk isn't working is because Slot is making him invert. He's a young robber running up and down that left side. So you know what's crazy about this whole Kirk situation? I remember watching a clip of him. I believe he was at AZ Alkmaar, and the interviewer asked him, what's your special trait as a fullback? What do you enjoy playing as a left back? And he said that he liked to invert. So I thought that's a bit strange because the way he played for Bournemouth was the complete opposite. He was, like you mentioned, running on the overlap and bombing down that left hand side. So maybe in his younger days that's something he enjoyed because maybe he got more influence in the game. But at this level, I don't think he has that in his locker to be an invert. He's not a Trent. He's not like a left-sided Trent where he can have that impact in the game. Um, his best spell was at Bournemouth last season, where he was on the overlap continuously. Of course, you can show variations in your play where occasionally you can invert, but I feel like the main focus should be on the overlap. But to give him some credit, he has done that. Unfortunately, the player in front of him, Gakpo, has not seen him. He's ignored him like he cussed his mum or something. Like he doesn't look at him. He'll cut inside and then he'll just try and go for goal and forget that he's made that run. So he's used him as a decoy. But in the matter of fact that he's actually made a great run where if he had passed it to him, he could have slotted in a great cross and he could have created an opening. So that's something that hasn't been formed, a relationship between the two players, and it's something I need to build on. Right now, it's all disjointed. That's why things aren't working fluidly on that left hand side. So that's something the coaches need to try and rectify in training. Um, Also, the reason Kirk isn't working is because he's crap, mate. I wouldn't say he's crap. I think he's a talented player. It's just, yeah, we just haven't. I think we haven't utilized him the right way. And I don't know if we've misprofiled him because I always had the assumption that if we were to go and sign a attack-minded right back like we did in Frimpong, it could mean one or two things. So one thing it would mean that we're reverting to a back three, and then we have two wing backs, i.e. Kirkes and Frimpong, because I do think both of them are wing backs in their in their normal way of playing. Or we have one attack-minded fullback, and then the left side is the defensive one. So last year I was speaking about Hato being that potential player comes in who's that defensive-minded fullback, but can form a back three as the game goes on, or as Frimpong attacks that right-hand side. But it's neither or right now. So I wouldn't say he's crap, um, but he hasn't shown his Bournemouth form so far in the Liverpool shirt. Boss says crap. Pretty sure he got in the Prem team of the season last year. Yeah, he did. Uh, I say means nothing. He's not doing it for us, and the reason because Slot is using him wrong. Yeah, I think Slot is using him wrong. I agree with that. Mate, what would you say the main reason was going through this? Slot is using wrong tactics and players. I have to agree. I think Slot we're not using the same tactics that we were last season. So Gravenberch was our most defensive-minded midfielder. He's now playing as a roaming number 8. Like he's box to box now, which is not what I want. That's why we've not had that protection to that back line because of his freedom to just find space and then go forward. If he sees a given opportunity. So yeah, desperate times right now. We've got to fix it. Uh, Also, is it Arne? The new signing is not gelling. United being brilliant. No see United and brilliant in one sentence. Yeah, neither would I, to be fair. Arne says they've been brilliant in the past few weeks. We can't deny it. I'm not giving them credit. So yeah, if you want to give them credit, that's fine. I'm not giving them credit at all. Actually, the Chiesa playing 90 minutes today means 0 minutes at the weekend. That's precisely what I said earlier on. That is my concern because now Slot will say, "Oh, you know what? I used you for 90 minutes. I need to rest you for the upcoming games. So you'll be on the bench, but then he'll never bring him on." Honestly, I don't know what the issue is between those two, but Slot's got to swallow his pride in that moment because James has been one of our better attackers this season alongside Katike. There's no denying that. So got to do what's best for the team. Sometimes you know arrogance or having a bit of a hard head, comes at a cost because if he continues this way, excuse me, then Slot will have a bit of an issue going forward. His days will be numbered. So he needs to do what's best for the team, find the solution, and play players in their correct positions. That's what he needs to do going forward. I actually think the players and fans are scared of United being resurrected. Yeah, I think you're going a bit over the top there. You've only won a few games on the bounce, so yeah, please relax. You know, doesn't mean you're back. If that's the notion there. Roger Pengton, big up Roger Pengton. He says, Ozzy, what's happened to LFC? You said in August we'll get the schedule for. No, dear, you don't have to bring that up. How do you fix this team? Does Slot go or do Isak and Vert step up things? Things are getting out of control. We need to fix it as soon as possible, bro. Bill, so I hope you're well, Roger Painting. Bloody hell, you didn't have to bring up the quad talk there. Honestly, I've been saying for months. I'm sure you'll remember as well. We had to change the formation. I've been saying 4-4 diamond for months because of the type of players that we brought in, and I feel like that would be the solution. Or you revert to a back three, and you have wing backs, and then you have two midfielders, then you have Verts as your number 10, then you've got two strikers up top. So like a 3-5-2 formation. That could work as well. I would personally prefer 4-4-2 diamond, on the basis that I don't think we have the personnel to play three at the back. We need to have a good few, at least 5-6 defenders to have cover for those roles. Right now we've got two first choice and we've got one centre back who had a poor game today. So you can see my resentment is of not playing that formation. Uh, I would say that would be the formula because right now things aren't clicking. You've got a problem with Isak and Ekitike. One is playing with huge confidence, but it's getting dropped to accommodate the big signing. And that big signing needs game time to find his match fitness and sharpness in front of goal. So because we're chopping and chaining both of those players, they're not finding their rhythm now. So that's been disruptive in terms of our attacking half. The solution is play both, play two strikers. Whether you have to drop certain players, like if you have to drop Salah for a few games here and there, so be it. I'm not in that kind of notion where you know, if you drop Salah, that's the foregone conclusion. No, there will be games where we need to rotate or switch it up. Right now, we need to find a solution to go back to winning ways. So if that means Salah doesn't play in the next game, so be it. Things have to be done for the good of this team, not for pleasing certain individuals. That's not how this club is run. So I would say we need to switch up the formation, play a 4-4-2 diamond, or if he wants to play 3-5-2, I'm not completely against that. That would have been my plan B in terms of solutions, um, and take it from there. Play players that are in form. Don't play players based on reputation. That's what I would say. So it takes a big manager to do that, to deal with egos like that in your squad. Whether Slot has that in him, only time will tell. Uh, Bo said, "Come on, uh, United's never coming back, mate." I hope not. They're looking scary. I don't know. Oh, if you're a United fan, a Liverpool fan, I'm getting a bit confused now. But yeah, they're not coming back. Let's not kill ourselves here. Um, Bo says not looking scary at all. One win doesn't make them scary, mate. Exactly. I wouldn't call them scary at all. And yeah, nothing even aligning that at all. Double D, big up Double D as always. He says, I do not understand the lack of depth on the bench, man. Just surrendered. Started under extreme pressure. Felt that self sabotage today. Facts. You can't go into a game having a bench full of youth players. And when I say youth players, I don't just mean reserve players. Some of those players were academy players. You know, they got to make sure they're in bed right now because they got school tomorrow. So that's the kind of players we had in our squad. So to just have that on the bench, like they're probably sitting themselves thinking, shoot, like if we get brought on, we got to have an impact on this. Like they can't rely on, someone's leadership or experience, to talk to them during the game and stuff. So I really feel like he just threw them under the bus today. Like that could impact their confidence going forward. So I thought it was a crazy thing what he did today. Even if he had a few players that he knew wouldn't play today or wouldn't get minutes, but just to have them around the players, the young players, give them that boost of confidence before they walk into the pitch. Those little things really make a difference. So it does feel like he's surrendering. I mentioned earlier on the show, he was waving that white flag because there was no guarantee this formation was going to work today. If you look to the personnel, it was untested. It was a mix of youth slash squad players that were starting today. So it's testing out a new formation and then having none of your quality players on the squad, you have surrendered. So that was the biggest concern for me today. And the way he spoke in the post-match conference made it seem like he had no choice. Like that is what he had to do, which for me, yeah, is absolutely crazy for him to say it out loud. But it is what it is. Bo said, "Hmm, if we lose 3-1 to Villa, 4-1 to Madrid, and 2-0 to City, will he get sacked? Irrelevant of those scorelines, if we lose to Villa, Madrid, City, yeah, he has to get sacked. He has to get sacked. And I'll be quite frank with you, I don't see us getting any results in those three fixtures. I don't even expect us to get a point. And that's not me just sounding like a defeatist or anything like that. I just can't see this team turning it around right now. I don't feel like they're playing for the coach. I think, the coach has tried two, three different formations in the space of 7 days, and he still doesn't know what formations works. So he's unsure. He's testing his ability right now. He's doubting himself. So we're all going through it right now as a collective. So yeah, I think he would get sacked if I'm being honest with you. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. Look, because by the time these fixtures are finished, we're close to the end of November. If things don't improve and he's still at the club at December, I'll be very shocked with the hierarchy because that is the time to make changes with the January window coming up. That is the time to switch things around. So let's see. I read Fabrizio Romano's tweets the other day saying that the club has full confidence of Arne Slot to get out of this situation. I don't have that confidence. I'll be honest with you. So hopefully he can fix up soon. Otherwise, we will be looking out for a new manager. Bo says, will Klopp come back if we sack him after those 3 games? The Klopp one is such a tricky one for me because, you know, to state obviously, he's been such an amazing manager for us. One of my favorites as a Liverpool manager. We all adore him. We really do. I don't know if it's wise to go back to appointing former managers, and bringing them forward. I don't feel like that's really ever worked. The only thing would be if we were to bring in Klopp, it would be kind of like what we did with Dalglish, should I say Sir Kenny Dalglish, where he came in to settle the ship. After that terrible time under Roy Hodgson, he came around that December January period, um, and did the same thing. So it could be done to that extent. But then I feel like it's a lack of respect to just bring Klopp for the remainder of the season because he's a high caliber manager. So I don't know. I feel like maybe it's not the route to go because, of course, he gave us a number of years as Liverpool manager, and of course, he left on his terms because he felt burnt out, and rightly so. But of course, that podcast that he did a couple of weeks ago hasn't helped because he said that he would consider only if it's Liverpool. So of course, that's in our mind frames now, isn't it? So look, if he was to come, I wouldn't be against it, but I just feel like the club should move forward and try and find someone else to to be the guy to take this team forward in the future. But we'll see. We'll see. Let me know in the chat if there's any other names that you guys would be comfortable, with being the new or the next. I shouldn't say new. It's a bit disrespectful, but the next Liverpool manager. Because there will be a lot of names this around. Toulouse mentioned Zinedine Zidane. I don't know if he'll be realistic. So let me know in the comments who you would consider. But Sinjab, big up there. Sinjabi says it's time for a new manager now. I hear it. I'm almost there, but I hear it. Ozwrld, come out, big up yourself as always. He says, I'm depressed, Ozzy. Yeah, I feel you, man. I feel you. Um, Boss says team versus Villa. Mama, Bradley, Konate, Virgil, Robbo, Grav, Szoboszlai versus Ekitike, Isak, Chiesa, Curtis comes in midfield if he is fit. Um, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So no Gakpo. I hear it. I'm not against that. I think in terms of what we have available, I would go with that team as well. I think Kirkes needs to be out of the limelight for the next foreseeable future. When I say foreseeable future, I mean the next few weeks. Um, I want Gravenberch and Szoboszlai to be the double pivot or playing together in the midfield. Robbo brings that experience, so that's why I want him ahead of Kirkes. And Isak, Ekitike. But would you play Chiesa on the left? How would you fit those three together? Because uh, I would have a different setup, to be fair. Um, trying to fit Chiesa, Isak, Ekitike. So would it be? Oh, so I'm assuming you're saying Chiesa on the right, Ekitike on the left, and Isak through the middle. It could be tested. Uh, for me, I'm going for. If it was my choice, I'd go for 4-4-2 diamond. Same players minus Chiesa, even though I've been, praising Chiesa all show today. Um, but have Verts as a 10 and then have Isak and Ekitike up top. That's what I would do. But let's see, because we haven't utilized Ekitike in a wide role yet, even though he did come off the bench in a recent game and did play in that, but didn't play as a winger. He played more as an inside forward. So yeah, so let's see, how it goes. Um, and he didn't even bring on the best ones. It's piling up. It's Pilling and Laffy. For me, Klopp was using young players to make a difference in games. But start just using it for the sake of it. Just stupid. Yeah, like when Klopp used those young players, we were in a bit of a predicament where we didn't have a lot of players available. But he didn't bring the whole squad. He didn't bring all of the young players through. He brought in the crop of players that he thought would make a difference, and he utilized their skills to our advantage. So when we need someone to hold up the ball, he brought on Dan's. If we needed someone to be a bit more of a ball playing player, he brought on the likes of McConnell, players like that. So yeah, it wasn't just to make a statement that we've got youth players or you know I'm going through a bit of an injury crisis right now. I've got 4 or 5 players out. I've got to bring the whole youth players around me. I don't know if that's him being indirect to the owners, but the owners backed you enough, so I don't feel like you've got an argument there. Um, yeah, I was just very surprised that he went with a completely, a young bench rather than having any experienced players there. Still bewilders me in terms of why he decided to do that. Um, Other than saying team versus Villa, Woodman, Lucas Stevenson, Nalo, Kobe Cisse, Gordon Ramsay, Aaron Morrison, Caleb Figueroa, Trinioni Rio, Cade Gordon, and Mohamed Salah. Mohamed Salah playing up top, the one playing on the right wing in that formation there. Klopp was amazing at using the young player at the right time, just missing the legend on the sideline. Everything was funny and more exciting. Yeah, I hear you. Glasner's a good shout. Glasner is a good shout. You know, Palace fans will tell you that, oh, it wasn't Glasner in terms of the reason why we didn't get Margate. I feel like it was, to be fair. Um, I do like him though. I do like the way he sets teams up. 'Cause if we were to bring that formation here, I wouldn't want us to play a 3-4-3. I'd want it to be where we play like a 3-5-2 if he wants to go with a back three. Um, yeah, I do like him. I think he's an interesting coach. Bo says Stevie G, Iraola, Klopp. Those are the only ones for me. Zidane is never ever coming. I don't want him at all. Same with Xavi. Yeah, I feel like those sort of legends of players do well with for their former clubs because it's more of an attachment with the fan base and the club. So because of their involvement with the club as a player, that's why there's that relationship. But Stevie G, I would have some reservations about him being the coach, even though he could be sort of the short-term fix to galvanize the squad. 'Cause I think the players would play for him, with him being a club legend. Um, Irola, very talented coach. I just don't know if he's at the level to take up that Liverpool job right now. So that would be my reservation with that one. Klopp, he's a legend, right? So I would like us to go into a different direction, if I'm being honest. I don't think we need to go back because it never works out for me. In terms of football history, it never really does. So I think we need to, leave that chapter closed and think ahead and try and find a new managerial appointment if that is the direction that we're going to go with. Double D said, hopefully Robo starts as he was subbed. Yeah, he was subbed. So yeah, I hope he is as well because I feel like we need his experience and his leadership to galvanize the squad going forward. Bo says Ekitike on the left and King on the right. Yeah, I assumed that. Uh, Lasner played boring football though. Wouldn't want him. I, I wouldn't say boring football, but yeah, it's definitely more defensive minded. But I feel like, but the thing is, if he was to come and set up that sort of team with Liverpool, I feel like our attacking players would really benefit from that defensive shield, if that makes sense, as they're allowed to, express themselves going forward. So he would be an interesting one. I don't know if for me if he's the one, but he's certainly a candidate. If I'm being honest, first I don't know why Stock doesn't wear glasses because doesn't need them. Oh, for God's sake! I was gonna say give me Pep Linders. God forbid. I would submit my CV before we even consider Pep Linders. Honestly. Never, never, never. That's not an option. Boss, I actually don't think Slot likes the younger academy players. Klopp said he would love to have a team full of Scousers. That's interesting. Um, Boss says, gotta say that I love the channel. Will it be more live streams in the future? Yeah, so most of my shows are live streams, to be fair. I think I very occasionally do recording shows. So yeah, most of my shows are live stream. Um, So match reaction shows normally I have a link in the chat. So if anyone wants to call in, they have the the ability to do so. Um, and then yeah, I'll do match previews, watch alongs. We'll do transfer late shows when the time's right, but also spontaneous discussional shows as well. So yeah, most of my shows are live. So yeah, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know exactly what time I will be going live. Boss is like in between games. Yeah. I was gonna say I'm just trying to get Ozzy to laugh because if we don't laugh, we'll cry. It's true, man. I was gonna say, by the way, the fade didn't work. I'll stop that fade like going forward. Yeah, it didn't work. Didn't work, unfortunately. Funny enough, I had that fade before the Brentford game and it still didn't work. So yeah, we gotta put that myth to the bins now. It's not the good luck charm, unfortunately. So gonna have to come up with another solution. But yeah, I think more so Slot than me. He needs to come up with a solution and find a new way for this team to gel and a new way to galvanize the squad because right now we lack everything um, that we saw last season in this team. No energy, no drive, no urgency, no determination, nothing. We are literally shell shocked. And look, I do want to say something as well. The tragic loss of Diogo Jota, we can't ignore that. Rival fans will say, "Oh, whatever," but let's not kill ourselves. I do believe it's had a huge mental impact on the team and the squad, and I feel like it's weighing on a lot of them. You know, the likes of Salah, who was very close to Jota, he's coming at his stage of his career where he's older now, and he's probably thinking, "Look, that could have been me." Like you start having these kind of thoughts in your head, um, and this might sound silly, but some players might, lose that sort of excitement or that desire to play football when something tragic like that happens. So we do have to, put that into account. I'm not saying that is that we can just use that as an excuse and we can pretty much call it off. But um, some players, it still affects them. So we have to just be a bit more careful into how we judge certain players. If a player hasn't performed well, that's fine. We criticize them, we do it in a critical way. But to dismiss someone saying that, oh, he's done, he's dusted, I don't think that's right. So, um, but yeah, just something to keep in mind because I do feel like with certain players, I feel like it has impacted them. You know, the likes of Van Dijk, I feel like in his demeanor, I can see it. With Salah after the Bournemouth game, he was crying. You could tell, if it's affecting him right now because he's just not the same kind of player. But I'm not using that as an excuse. But I do believe it's a factor, you know, and it's understandable that that is a factor right now. But at the same time, everyone grieves differently. If I was in their situation, I would use it as ignition to, do him proud and try and play for him. Play with more aggression, do it for him, make him proud. That's the way I would do it. Obviously, everyone's different. Everyone's got a different mentality or different way of doing things, but you got to have a different attitude. You got to stop feeling sorry for yourself as well. Because I know Jota wouldn't want the team to be, playing the way that they are right now. So it's something that the players need to look at and think, you know what, we got to do it for him. He wouldn't be happy about the situation right now. So let's make him proud. That's the kind of thinking that needs to be done if it is severely affecting the players. Um, but I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm not being insensitive when I say that out loud either. There's a lot of problems in terms of how we're playing, how we're setting up. Everything that I couldn't imagine going wrong has gone wrong because we don't spend 450 million to diagnose as a team. It doesn't make sense. Like logic will tell you that doesn't make sense. How can you buy elite players and get worse as a team? I don't know. There's no answer for that. So something needs to give. Slot needs to find a solution. If not, we will have to appoint someone else that can take the team forward because we're not signing all these players and then making them washed all of a sudden. So a lot of work needs to be done in the background. So hopefully Slot has the answers going forward. Mo says don't like the stock comments after the game. I didn't like it either. I watched it just before I started the stream. Didn't like his tone. Didn't like the way he was making excuses. It just sounded a load of waffle to me, if I'm being honest. Bo was asking, do you think the players want to play for him at the moment? I don't think so. I'm not saying he's completely lost the dressing room, but I think they have lost faith in the coach because the way we're playing, we're not playing to the tactics that we played last year. We're not playing to that same kind of standard. So, something has changed in terms of our training methods or whatnot. And something I mentioned in a previous show, maybe the departure of John Heitinger has impacted the way we train as a team because he was very hands-on as a coach and would have deployed a certain way of playing going forward. So, Van Bronckhorst has come in. Maybe he has a completely different philosophy, and it's just not a good match for the crop of players that we have. So, who knows at this stage? But um, something needs to change. I'm not seeing it in recent games. The only game that gives me a bit of hope that we could turn it around is that Frankfurt one. Now, if we didn't get a win there, I'd been slaughtered a long time ago. But I'll give the team benefit that they can turn it around. But they got to do it soon. Tunisia says, Ozbro, we need to stop with the Diogo excuse, bro. Let the man rest in peace. I'm not using it as a main excuse, but I'm using it in context for certain players like Salah because Salah's been getting a lot of rubbish thrown towards him from Royal fans and Liverpool fans as well. And I don't completely agree with it because I feel like he has affected him emotionally. Um, but then that said, that is the manager's responsibility to work around the player. If his mind is not fully there yet, take him out of the firing line. The public will see as him being dropped, but the coach and the player knows they're doing it for his own good, if that makes sense. So I don't know if Stott has the balls to do things like that. That's going to be his judgment going forward. Because that's why I feel like, there are games where I feel like maybe, rotate someone here and there, or maybe Salah doesn't play in this game. People are worried, oh, he's going to throw a hissy fit about it. But that's where the manager shows his credentials in terms of man management. That's what he's got to do going forward. So yeah, Slots, he's got to live up to the bill now because he's not shown it so far this season. And not to sound like I'm disrespecting him, but last season was last season now. We got to think forward, right? We can't rest on our laurels of what we did last year. We can do a comparison. We played this way. Why are we not playing the same way? Because we haven't evolved as a team. So that's my concern going forward. And tactically, we just don't seem right. So Slot has a lot of work to do going forward. Ball says absolutely, but if the players feel like that, they shouldn't be playing. Give them the time off the pitch. That's exactly what I was alluding to in terms of Salah. I'm not saying all the players because I think everyone, agrees a certain way, but I feel like he's impacted the most. So it might be worth, just game out the firing line for the foreseeable future, and then hopefully getting back in better shape. Um, and I don't get the so-called fans who are always blaming Curtis when he has been good in games. Who are those people? I hear you. Yeah, he's definitely a player that splits the fan base. I think Curtis Jones has been fantastic for the last few weeks, and he's clearly a person that is playing for the badge. He's fighting for the fans. That's what I see. He's one of us, but he's on the pitch because he's not happy about what's going on. So he's showing a different level to his game. He's taking responsibility and he's trying to fix things in his own hands. But of course, it's too much for one player to do. The other players around him need to do the same thing as well. So I guess they've got to take a leaf out of his book to play with real purpose and fight for the badge as well. That's what we want. And that's what we want as fans when we watch our team playing week in, week out. LC20 says to do so. I agree. I also don't think the Jota song helps. I hear you, but everyone's going to dedicate, you know, Jota in their own way, whether it's them singing a song or whether we're doing it on the 20th minute of every game. You have to respect um, how fans are sort of grieving and wanting to show respect for the player as well. So and the human being, of course, in general. So you, uh, I feel like fans are entitled to do what they want in that regards. I don't see it being an issue. Um, but yeah, I think you know if players are struggling, they need to be out the firing line, seek help, whether it's therapy or just need counseling, whatever it needs to be done, and get them in the right shape of mind because that will help the team. It will help the individual come to terms as well, and hopefully, helps them in life going forward. So yeah, let's see what happens for the foreseeable future. Ball said, "Why does slot rotate so much this season? He hadn't even given heart earlier or Chiesa and he missed last season. Think he's overthinking so much. He is because I don't know if it's the PSG defeat, but he's. I'm not saying he's trying to copy their style, but he's overthought his tactics because now we're not playing with a defensive-minded midfielder. We've got a bit of a midfield where they switch based on the positioning of the opponents or how the game is being played. You need a structure. You need a static setup at times, especially when it comes to defensive situations. And we need one player to be number six. That's what we need right now, and that should be Gravenberch. But he's given him the license to roam and go forward. And what happens is when he roams forward, McAllister's the deepest midfielder, and that's why we're getting exposed because he can't handle counter attacks coming at him because he doesn't have the physique or the athleticism to counter and try and make any blocks or make any interceptions. So that's why we're struggling. We've got no protection. We've got McAllister who's not fully fit, whatever you want to phrase it. He's just not able to do that role. So that's why we have to fix. We have to find a solution because it's not working right now. We got to revert back to what we were playing last year because of personnel. Of course, we've sold a lot of players and brought a lot of players in, but it can still work with the personnel that we have in the squad. So it comes down to Arne Slot, you know, what tactics he wants to play going forward. Boss exactly. He's a scout and cares about the club. He's not like Slot who smiles when we are 2-0 down at home. He's trying to copy Kirk is inverting like Nuno and that fluid midfield like Vitinha, Neves, and Ruiz. If that's the case, I'm not here for my manager to be copycat. You got to play with your philosophy, with your identity. So that's one key word there. We don't have an identity right now. I don't know if we're a ball possession team. I don't know if we're a counter-attacking team. We're not one, we're not neither. So it's got to find a solution. Um, it's against Aston Villa this week. They're not in the best of forms. Javier is not even getting minutes in that team there. So look, if we can turn it around, get some points there, it puts us in the right direction. But this team has a lot of work to do. If we were to get a win against Villa and we get nothing out of the Real Madrid to Man City games, there's no progression there. There's no plan. So something needs to be done. If we're seeing a different formation and a different setup, and we're seeing the best players or the more informed players starting games, that's when I realized Slot is doing the right thing, playing informed players, and he's playing a system that fits the current personnel or the skill set that we possess in the squad. But I'm not seeing it from him right now. So we'll see what happens in the upcoming fixture. Bo said we don't have any identity, no press, no passing, no fight, nothing. No, we don't. And that's my concern. And that's why I'm almost at the exit door in regards to being slot out because things need to change. And that's my concern because I'm not seeing any improvement. I'm not seeing any progression. And I'm not seeing a different approach from my coach. So that's something we got to look into. Bo said, would you be happy if we get a 90-minute winner against Villa, but lose clear against City and Madrid? No, I wouldn't be happy about that because that last minute win of Villa reminds me of what we did early in the season where we were just winning games because of last minute winners. Some would say that was signs of a champion, but I feel like we were just riding our luck. And then that would feel like the same notion for me again, where oh, we just about get the win, but then we get smashed against our rivals. So no, I want some sort of improvements in the results against Madrid and City. I'm not saying 3 wins out of things because that just feels like I'm being deluded, which I would be if I am saying that out loud. Um, but we got to take it one game at a time. We really do. Sounds cliche, but it is a fact. Um, we have to take it one game at a time. We have to get things working as a collective. We need to find the formation or formula that will suit the way we play and take it by there. That's how it's going to be, unfortunately. But also, what do you think that slot is actually trying to do? I think he's trying to find the formation that works for his players, but also fits in with his philosophy, and he's not finding that right balance right now. I think as you mentioned, he's overthinking tactics. So he's got that Pep Guardiola syndrome because he's overthinking it. But football is a simplistic game. You don't need to go too crazy in that regards. In certain fixtures, you do have to be very tactically aware of your opponent. But with players, you gotta give them familiarity in terms of how they play and how they set up. Right now, the players don't know what they're doing. One of our best players, arguably, has been Szoboszlai. In one game, he'll play right back, number 6, number 8, or number 10. Like he'll play 2, 3 rows every game. That's unacceptable. It's a shame for him because he's so good that he is able to adapt to different roles. But generally speaking, he shouldn't have to play multiple roles every game. That's not fair on him. He should have stability and play in a specific position. That's why I'd rather have Ramsey as my right back for next game rather than have Szoboszlai there. So I know with Szoboszlai, he'll have that impact in that midfield. So that's how I need to see it going forward. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he does. And right now, I'm not too sure what he will do because he switched it up to a 4-4-2 against Frankfurt, switched it up to a 5-2-3 today. What's his ideology for the next game? It's not clear. So we'll have to wait and see. Delu Steve says, I'll be happy if we don't lose against Villa. Yeah, I would be as well, but I want more. This is Liverpool Football Club. I can't just be vouching for a point. I need wins. Call me entitled, but that's what I'm expecting from my team. Both the TK Chiesa, Szoboszlai case are the only ones who can go up. Can go with their head held high so far this season. Yeah, I agree with that list there. Bruno Ramsey is a red card waiting to happen. He's not the answer, the solution to lose Steve, but I've not been impressed with Bradley so far this season as well. So we gotta find something out of nothing right now. That's what it feels like. Bulldogs, who has been the most disappointing player so far, Ozzy? For me personally, it's been Konate. I've been very disappointed in terms of his performance because I expect more from him. Last year he was a colossal in our backline. This year he's a shadow. He has improved, I would say. But Konate, for me, is definitely a player that I've been so shocked into how he's performed. And I don't know if it's the noise coming from Real Madrid in terms of his contractual situation. It could be. Um, and because we're not hearing any further developments, I've said it for months. I don't think he'll sign a new contract. I think he will head over to Real Madrid next summer. So with that said, the club maybe should have pushed harder for the likes of Mark Gahey or maybe another centre back. Um, but yeah, I would say Kanate. Um, and I'd probably say McAllister as well because McAllister looks like a shadow of himself. Don't even recognize McAllister. Konate, I'm seeing a bit more improvement, so I'll give him that benefit of that doubt. But McAllister, no, I haven't seen anything improve. No improvement. Today was just as bad as any other game he's played this year. So yeah, those two. But Konate comes to my mind because I expect us to be so solid in the back. Um, and that's been one of our frailties so far this season. Deleu Steve says McAllister, without a shadow of a doubt, has been hands down the most disappointing player. Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. I think he has been. I think Konate because of us not having the foundation at the back. But yeah, McAllister's a huge shout as well. Bosses can see the midfield, McGuinn, Rogers, and Onana running through our midfield so many times, man. Yeah, that's not going to be. That's not an easy proposition. You know, they might not be the fancy names of world football, but as a collective, they work well together. They have a formidable partnership and understanding between the three, and they pretty much play on a regular basis. Right now, we've got midfield where we lack power, we lack energy, we lack everything in the locker. So we're just a punching bag right now. That's how it feels like for me. Um, Bob, another comment says Kwanzaa is balling out in the Bundesliga as well. Yeah, maybe we should have kept him on board. He would have been very useful right now. Ah, I probably wouldn't have sold Diaz either. I understood why he left because obviously he wanted a better contract and the club weren't willing to offer that to him. But I think that's the club's mistake because he's balling out in Bayern Munich as well. So yeah, the constant one I think I kind of understood in terms of his development stage. The Luis Diaz one, I understood it as well, but I wanted him to stay as well. So don't get everything that you wish for, I guess. Boss has started using players out of repetition instead of form, and that's the issue. You know, we've got to play players that are in form. You mentioned Curtis Jones; he has to start in the upcoming games. So for me, you got to play players that are in form rather than go off reputation or you have to start his player because he expects to start with. You gotta separate that and do what's best for the team. So that's what needs to be done going forward. To do season. Ozzy, do you follow any other sports to take your mind away from this disgusting stretch? Yeah, what do I follow? So I like to watch boxing, UFC. I watch WWE nowadays because of my kids. They're into it as well. So you know that's something I'll have on in the background. But yeah, combat sports. Love combat sports. Boxing, UFC. The UFC over the weekend wasn't the best, but however, the fight, Joseph Parker and Fabian Woodley was fantastic. What a great watch that was if you watched that. Um, but yeah, but unfortunately, my love is for football. So I can be, focused on the other sports. Um, but then the next day, I've got to think about football because obviously with me having a YouTube channel, I've got to think about the next show that I'm going to do. So yeah, it's a bit harder just to switch off than the normal person, but yeah, those are the sports that I would probably say keep me going. Um, and I can use as an escape from time to time. Um, but also, even Xavi took Vinny out in the El Clasico. I saw the comments about him saying that, oh, I'm done or something along those lines. Like, that was wild, to be fair with you. But yeah, you got to do what's best for the team. You really do. If you want to get results, you got to do those kind of little tweaks here and there. It doesn't mean that's the stance for the rest of the future. It's just for the moment. We've got to try and get through it. So that's what Stott needs to do as well. He needs to grow some balls. Bo says NFL and go for me. Be like yourself. Lewis says favorite MMA fighter of all time. So in terms of MMA, I've not been following it for too long. As in, I wouldn't say I've been following it for like years and years. But the first fighter that I came across was John Jones, and I don't think anyone comes close to him personally. So for me, I would say John Jones is my favorite fighter of all time. But it depends in terms of how else you want to phrase it, because I also think Conor McGregor brought it to the mainstream as well. So you can't discredit his impact for that sport because he was someone that I wasn't a heavy UFC viewer like from those years ago, um, but John Jones was definitely one that I got introduced to probably like 10 years ago, and I was like, yeah, this guy's something else, because he's not the biggest as well. Of course, now he's a heavyweight, but in those days he was a light heavyweight, and the way he would just do certain people, and he wouldn't just have one way of winning. He will always find a way of winning, and he can be relentless and he can demolish people as well. So that's the kind of um, the fighter that I really enjoyed watching. Um, Such a shame that he's not fighting Tom Aspinall because I feel like that would be a great fight. I know there are rumors suggesting that they could fight next year, um, as in John Jones against Alex Pereira. So that could be a super fight. I think they were trying to do that at Washington DC at the White House. So yeah, I don't know if that's gonna happen, but so I'd say John Jones. So let me know who your favorite MMA fighter of all time is as well. Bob said everything is about football. Yeah, it always reverts back to football. Doesn't matter how you get your mind away from stuff. Yeah, I think there's times where you eat, sleep, and breathe football as well. So yeah, this is how it goes. Um, Alexis Trainer says, going back to Mac 10, do you think the problem is last season he had a free roll, but this season he don't? It could be because, as we mentioned earlier in the show, I feel like Gravenberg has that free roll now from what we've seen so far this season. And McAllister's having to be more disciplined or the more defensive minded player in the team, and that's affected his performance. But having said that, even his strong skill set is his passing, his distribution. Um, he hasn't really um showcased that, and he's done it to a very poor standard. Even tonight, his passing was so bad. He gave the ball away so many times, and that's my concern with him. Like he just looks like a shadow himself. I'm no when you're playing football, you don't always have to be the biggest to make your presence felt, but he's getting pushed around like no business. Like it's like you playing with kids, or if you've got like young cousins or little brothers and sisters, and you're playing garden football, you're nudging them out the way because you're bigger. That's what it feels like when I watch McAllister on the pitch now. It's shocking. Um, and he's not even getting beaten by the bigger players. He's just being played by players that have more drive, more urgency in their play. So it's a concern. Yeah, it really, really is. So that's what I'm saying. Slot needs to revert back to the way we were playing last year. It was the winning formula. Don't need to change it too much. Let that be the foundation and let the new players gel within that kind of frame. So whether he will do that or not, it remains to be seen, to be honest with you. Boss, says any TV shows you like? To be fair, I haven't watched a series like that for quite some time. But if anyone's got any recommendations, please do let me know in the chat. Um, what have I watched recently? I'll be honest with you, I haven't watched TV as such. It's been football, work, family life, and then any spare time I have, it'll probably be football or boxing, UFC, wrestling. So, um, yeah, I can't think of any. I still have a lot of series that I haven't watched it, like Squid Games, I haven't watched yet. So, as in, I watched the first season, I haven't watched the second season, which yeah, I should have done a long time ago. Um, but yeah, those kind of programs like those crime, um, the the drug type ones, there I find those kind of programs quite interesting. So that's got no insight to my character or anything like that, but those are the type of ones I do enjoy. Blue Steve says mine was Max Holloway, bro. Yeah, he's cold. I like Max Holloway. That fight with Gaethje when he was like, "Come, let's fight," and just smashed him on the spot. Literally, I think there's like 5, 10 seconds left. That was quality. So yeah, he's a soldier. He really is. Really do like Max Holloway, and I like his attitude, even like his persona and his demeanor. Like, he's not an idiot. He's not just, doing it for the cameras or anything. He seems like a generally good guy. And yeah, when it comes to the octagon, yeah, he's ready to give it his all. So yeah, he's definitely highly going, definitely up there as one of the best. So yeah, good shout there. Boss, I think Salah's trying too much. He wants to be number one all the time, and that is so frustrating. I think with Salah, you know, the question was mentioned about McAllister in terms of his role. I feel like Salah's role changed as well because over the years, Salah plays as a right winger slash right forward, however you want to phrase it. But our play always goes to him as the final pass or the final outcome of our build-up play. Now it's completely switched. Now we're going the traditional way where it's for the number nine, i.e. Isak or Ekitike, whoever starting the game. So that's a tweak in terms of our way of playing. And so his role now is to be a creator more than a goal scorer in his team. But unfortunately, with the players around him, he hasn't quite understood the way they play or hasn't quite understood their game or their movement because the only player that he's familiar with is Gakpo, but he's on the other wing. So he's not going to have that kind of relationship with, or he's not going to find spaces for him because he's on the other side. But the likes of Ekitike, Isak, he's still trying to understand what is the right way to play. And Verts as well in your advanced 10 role. So the dynamics have definitely broken down because of so many changes. And that was what was really surprising about the summer. Of course, I was loving it because we were buying players left, right, and center. And if you take it back to last year's summer, we just bought Chiesa, and that was on the final days of the window. So um, I was struggling to do content in those times. And as the summer gone, I was doing shows every day. So that's the kind of level of excitement it was. But I do feel like we've done too much too soon, looking at our squad. But you know, you have to have an idea for these players when they come in and a different way of playing. I don't think Slot has that in mind. Um, because even with his evolving tactics right now, they don't really fit the way we play, and it's not doesn't fit the skill sets that these players possess either. So yeah, uh, in terms of Salah trying to be number one, I haven't seen that this year so much. I understand your point, but I feel like this year he's not been involved, so he's not shooting as much as he normally. He's not releasing the ball quicker. His decision making has been very questionable. He's making the wrong passes. His mind is just not quite there. So with him, it's more of a mentality issue where I don't know if it's because of the new players around him. He's not quite able to form partnerships. And remember, Trent played a big role in his game because he would pick up passes for him. Now he's got two fullbacks in Frimpong and Bradley who are completely different. They're more dynamic. They want to bomb forward. Frimpong likes to attack the byline, whereas Bradley likes to go into diagonal runs inside the box. So different types of profile there. So that hasn't helped. And with the coach not having a certain or specific way of playing, that hasn't helped either. So there's a lot of issues, and unfortunately, we're going to suffer this season. We're going to have to face a lot of pain. I don't think there's a quick fix for this. Um, but of course, if another coach or another manager comes in, it's another scenario. But right now, we're going to have to go through it to see the light after this dark time right now. Barca could be in the 12th if we lose on Saturday. Bloody hell. I did not realize it we would go down that low. Personally, Two and a Half Men and all the Office must watch series. Two and a Half Men, I watched quite a bit. Um, back in the, especially Charlie Sheen. He was in his heyday, and unfortunately had that crazy episode in real life, as in when he tried to boycott the whole situation there. Yeah, Two and a Half Men is quite funny. Office, I've seen Office, but I haven't watched it from end to end. So maybe something I need to do. And I know it's a bit of a light watch as well, so something I can have on the background whilst I'm doing my work. Uh, anyone watch Muay Thai fights? I haven't watched it specifically. Uh, but I do like that sort of fighting because I do like different types of combat sports. So I've gone to like jiu-jitsu events. I like to watch kickboxing. So Muay Thai is definitely one on my list as well. So yeah, definitely like to see different forms of combat sports. Um, yeah, that's the kind of field I like. Uh, Balls asks favorite LFC player of all time that you have watched. Steven Gerrard. I think for me, Captain Fantastic, wasn't he? Complete midfielder. And I know fans always have debates, the typical skulls and all that stuff. But for me, I don't think no one gets close to him. Maybe that's a bit of bias kicking in, I don't know. But assessing the traits that he had as a midfielder, he was out of this world. So for me, it's him. But if it was like a non sort of English or non Scouser, this might not be a popular choice. I'd go for Suarez because the stuff that he was producing in Liverpool shirt was outrageous. Honestly, some of the stuff that he did on the pitch was out of this world. So he was elite. So for me, probably one of our best strikers. But of course, his outside shenanigans didn't help, and it kind of tarnished his legacy at the club. But as a footballer, one of the best I've seen on the pitch. So yeah, for me, Gerrard and Suarez. But if I had to choose, I'm gonna go for Stevie G as my favorite. Um, on TV or in person is what LFC Training was asking. In person, I haven't seen that many games in person, unfortunately. So that's something that I need to do more so than not, especially with my son, getting into football. Um, I won't take him to any games now because bloody hell, we're not in good form right now. But um, I've seen Messi in person, so I guess Messi would be top that list, I guess. But in terms of Liverpool player, probably Bobby Firmino, I'd say, in person. I went to watch the Liverpool Barcelona preseason friendly years ago. Um, I got to see those players there. But yeah, in terms of on screen or on the TV, Gerrard and then Suarez just behind him there, to be fair. Uh, Also, if you have the possibility of playing for your favorite club and winning trophies and be the captain in the future, that should be the ultimate thing in your life. So Trent is not actually an LFC fan. I hear you. To be fair, I don't know. It's slightly off topic, but I don't know if anyone's seen his brother. I don't know his name, but his brother doing content nowadays where he's streaming games and he's trying to be, reactionary to matches and stuff like that. That's really peeing me off. Like you don't even have a right to support Liverpool in public like that. The way you and your brothers, because I'm saying brothers, I'm talking about, Trent and his other brother who, you know, is his agent, I guess. So, the way they've kind of done it for me, yeah, don't like what's been done there. But also can't express my hate on the right. I don't blame you. If I could change one thing in history, uh, it would be that Stevie G won that Premier League. Yeah, the slip. Oh, that season was sensational, and I remember that season, which is probably a little bit off topic, was I don't know if anyone remembers, we actually tried to sign Mohamed Salah that season from FC Basel because we needed a right-sided player. We were lacking that attacking, um, sort of goal scorer in our team. Of course, we had Suarez and Sturridge, but we needed one more just to kind of balance the books. So trying to rotate a little bit more. I feel like Mourinho literally just bought him just to make sure we didn't get him because we couldn't afford it at the time. So, but yeah, that season, honestly, probably played some of our best football. Even seeing Suarez and Sturridge as a duo, by far the best partnership I've seen in a Liverpool shirt. And funny enough, they weren't even best mates. Like they were civil, they were like cordial and stuff, but they weren't like besties or anything like that. So that makes it even more special because they were players that knew each other's movements. and they were just able to form a great partnership on the pitch. So yeah, that's something I would like to change as well. To be fair, unfortunately, but it wasn't to be. Uh, LSC James says for me in person, Rush, Barnes, and a young Joe. Big up yourself. Boss says Stevie G for him. So yeah, lots of Stevie G ones there. Um, yeah, we could do with Stevie G in our team right now, couldn't we? So yeah, hopefully things can change in the coming future. Um, Bo says 2020 was the best years. Yeah, we played some good football in those years. Thanks to Jurgen Klopp. Played some heavy metal football. He doesn't like that phrase, but yeah, we got to use that reference now because it was end-to-end stuff. And yeah, enjoyable time. Yeah, Liverpool fan. Hopefully, Slot can bring that back for us. But right now, it seems a bit far-fetched. But we got to stay positive. We got to stay as grounded as possible to allow the coach to do what he's got to do. And we got to back him. We got to support him as well. Bo says Slot can't even control games right now. He can't control his mouth when he's talking nonsense in press conferences. So yeah, not helpful. But hopefully, we find a solution going forward. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to everyone for sending your comments. Appreciate your engagement as always, guys. Thank you to Lulu Steve. Thank you to Stuart. Thank you to LFC20. Thank you to R. Thank you to Bo. Thank you to Phil. Thank you. Who else do we have? Thank you to Rajib. Thank you to Double D. Big up yourself as always. Shout out to Burton Jab. Big up Ozan Kabak. Um, If I've missed you, apologies, but yeah, big up everyone for your engagement. Appreciate it as always, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, in terms of upcoming shows, what day are we? We're in Wednesday, we're Thursday now. So I'll be doing a match preview of Uh, Liverpool versus Aston Villa. I was trying to think, is it home or away? So it's a home fixture tomorrow. Liverpool versus Aston Villa. So we'll be going live at around 11 p.m. UK time. So that will be the match preview. And then on Saturday, we'll do a live watch along. The game, I believe, is at 8 p.m. kickoff again, like it was last week against Brentford. So hopefully, I'll be able to do a live watch along for that. And also a match reaction show like today as well. So yeah, lots of content coming this way. But that is it for today, guys. I've just got a couple of comments here. Let's just a bit Ozzie big so Ball streaming tomorrow. Yeah, match preview tomorrow. Liverpool versus Aston Villa. So make sure to tune in for that 11 p.m. UK time. And Julie Steve has ended the show with Slot out. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.